Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our event here at Assoc NUS School of Computing, NUS. My name is Minyan Khan. I will be your host and Masters of Ceremony today. And we are very pleased to have you all here physically in UTown Auditorium 1 and also online on Zoom. Just the first quick thing, a disclaimer that this session will be recorded and post-edited. So I hope you're willing to participate in all of our interactive sessions today, and there may be photographs of you published as part of this event. And we'll need your participation a lot too. There will be an interactive demo session for the first part, and there will be a panel that happens in the 4 to 5 o'clock. In the intermediate session, we'll be having invited talks. But to this, we'll need you to register on Poll Everywhere, and we'll be doing a couple activities as a group this afternoon. You'll see this QR code interspersed throughout a couple of the presentations. It's only a single link, so I hope you can go ahead, scan the QR code, and put in your name if you care to. So here's the program for today. It's a bit small, so I'll just tell you briefly how the session will run. We'll have a first hour of hands-on interactive demonstrations where we'll show you what the capabilities of current AI tools are. And then secondly, we'll have a set of 4 invited talks looking at different perspectives of how AI tools impact our lives. And we'll be finishing our session with a panel session moderated by myself, to look at the future of how AI will impact the way we do our work, play, and study. After that, we'll have a set of refreshments before going to any other networking that we might want to do as a group. So right now, I'd like to invite our Dean of School of Computing, Professor Tan Ken Lee, to take the floor and give an opening address. Prof. Tan, please.
All right, good afternoon. Once again, welcome all of you to today's forum by the School of Computing. Thank you so much for joining us for what we hope will be an informative and interactive and interesting session. Before I pass the time to the next person, I'd just like to add a few comments. As you probably know, ChatGPT is probably one of the fastest, highest so-called rate of adoption for many years, right? Within 5 years, it has 1 million users, and apparently in February, OpenAI announced that it has 1 billion visitors. It is truly a disruptive technology that will affect many, perhaps, ways of our life. There are many potential applications where you can use ChatGPT. You'll probably hear from many of my colleagues here who are experts and will be sharing with you. There are several ways in which we can respond to this fascinating technology. We could, if you are rich and famous, you could sue OpenAI. If it starts to hallucinate and give you some fake information, right? You could be, if you are tech leaders like Elon Musk, they have, with other tech leaders, they have called for a pause, right, in AI technology, especially those concerning training experiments. There are many who are fearful, worried about losing their jobs, worried about educators perhaps are concerned that their students will cheat. For us, right, at NUS School of Computing, we would like to embrace this technology. Right? We think that it is a fascinating platform where we can, if we use responsibly, we will be able to harness its power, its capabilities to help our students to learn better. In fact, many of my colleagues are already thinking of ways how to enhance their lectures, their lessons, to make use of ChatGPT. So I hope you will join us in embracing this technology, and let's move towards the future where we can work closely, right, with artificial intelligence, right? Technologies that are, after all, developed by humans. Right? So with that, let me thank Professor Kang and our colleagues from NUS Fraternity for putting together this program, and hope you will enjoy it. Now I'll pass the time to Professor HENG to come forward to lead this session. Thank you.
So a very good afternoon to everyone. I'm HENG. Welcome. So, on 30th of November last year, OpenAI launches its prototype ChatGPT, and immediately the whole world is taken by storm. As of today, the valuation of OpenAI is about US $29 billion. Everyone is testing it, playing around with it, seeing what it can do and what it cannot do. And of course, there are many of us who is trying to what? Crash it, bug it, and then, hey, tell the whole world, we are better than AI. Well, but within the short span of 4 months, guess what? GPT-4 is being launched. Yes, you see the headlines. 5 jaw-dropping things that GPT-4 can do. It tries to understand images. It is multilingual, supporting 26 languages. It can take on personalities, so be it Tom Cruise, Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, and what have you. And it's better in terms of memory, making the jump from approximately 4,000 words to 25,000 words. And according to them, it is safer and it abides by the policies of OpenAI. And given all this intense chase in AI, guess what? Immediately, the Futures of Life Institute has crafted an open letter signed by the co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, and Tesla CEO Elon Musk, and many tech leaders. As of today, about 25,000 people has endorsed the signature, asking for a pause of about 6 months to technology. So in the recent event, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has come out to say, calm down. Well, in case you're thinking, oh, it's only about text. What about images? A picture speaks 1,000 words. We used to believe, right? Seeing is believing. Guess what? Only recently in November, this painting, isn't it amazing, has been submitted to the Colorado State Fair Fine Art Competition, and it won. Of course, the rest of the artists are furious. But guess what? The artist, Jason Allen, via Mid-Journey, was unapologetic. He scrutinized the rules and said, I did not break any rules. And just over the weekend, very recent weekend, in the Sony World Photography Competition, guess what? This won the top prize as well, and it's generated by AI. But this time, the artist or the photographer claims that he wants to trigger a conversation about images and AI. But in case you dismiss all these and say that, well, they are just for leisure, entertainment and hobbies, what about real-life news, politics, religion? I'm not sure whether you have seen them, but most of us have definitely seen it. Well, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, was actually a protester in his own riots. And guess what? Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, was arrested. Well, many of such photos are going to emerge soon. And guess what? In case you say, no, I read the news, I know what is fake. The next headline says it all. I thought I was immune too until I saw this. Pope Francis wearing Balenciaga, puffy jacket, and stylish shades. Well, in case you think you are not easily fooled, why don't we do a test? We practice what we preach, so do I. So when I was invited, guess what? Let's have this. Let's figure out whether what I've scripted is done by me or by AI and machine. Let's see the first version. So, ladies and gentlemen, opening today's speech, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. As Arthur Clarke famously said, advanced technology can often seem like magic, and that's certainly true when it comes to ChatGPT. Welcome to our public seminar. Fear not, we are not here to perform any wizardry like Harry Potter, right? Or conjure up any spells. Instead, we are here to explore the fascinating world of ChatGPT, a technology that is transforming the way we interact with language and information. Today, we'll learn about how ChatGPT works and how it's being used in various fields. So let's dive into this magical world of ChatGPT with open minds and a sense of wonder. Thanks for being here, and let's have some fun. In case you don't like this version, probably crafted by me, probably crafted by AI, let's look at the second version and put a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, the limits of my language means the limits of my world. As philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once noted, language shapes our reality and worldview, and ChatGPT is expanding those limits in new and exciting ways. Welcome to our public lecture, a cutting-edge technology that's changing the way we interact with language and information. I'm excited to see so many of you here today as we delve into the workings of ChatGPT, explore its capabilities and limitations, and discuss its potential applications in various fields. So let's push the boundaries of our understanding of language and technology and discover together what ChatGPT has to offer. Thank you for being here, and let's get started, at least in voting. Whether it's human or machine. So do you think version A is generated by a human being, or version B is generated by a human being? Equally intriguing, doesn't it? Could it have passed off easily? Intentionally. Yeah, so just choose which version is done by AI. Maybe that would help. That's the question. Which version do you think are closer or less human being? Closer to AI and less human being. So you suspect, if HENG was to repeat this, then I will speak it very robotically. Like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. As Arthur Clarke famously said, blah, blah, blah. And may we have the results, please, of the poll. Thank you. So most of y'all think that version B, or at least 60% thinks it's version B, and at least 40% of you thinks that the first version is drafted by human beings, right? So of course, I'm sure a lot of y'all know how professors set questions, right? Did you guess the answer? Back to the slide, please. Of course, both of them were done by AI. And guess what? I did not have to do many tricks. This was just the first 2 or 3 versions with my prompt engineering. And before we delve further and open it to the rest of the presenters, please bear in mind the next 3 things which I thought are good food for thought as we step through the next 2.5 hours session. First, we'll go through what AI can do and cannot do. And in case you still feel strongly that ChatGPT fails to pass Singapore PSLE, guess what? It has managed to pass very well and surprisingly well the SAT, the GRE, the Stanford Medical School exam, the Wharton MBA exam, etc. Try GPT-4 if I were you. Next, should we embrace it or should we ban it? So some countries have chosen to ban it, some have started to embrace it and integrate it even further. Finally, Given all the issues that it may raise, ethical, legal, should we seek progress or regress? With all the letters that are incoming, and some people even foretelling doomsday. Thank you. So let's welcome our next speaker, Qizhe.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. Now that Qizhe has shared with us how these language models came to be, he gave us a very good history lesson. Let's talk about what's been happening in the past few years that's enabled these so-called large language models to exceed capabilities that humans have thought were not possible for the next 10 years. So let's forget everything that happened before 2020, anything before GPT-3. Let's look at stuff that happened 2022 onwards. So ChatGPT came out, and it was using a very specific version of GPT-3 that was trained a bit more. It was fine-tuned a bit more. And the underlying technology, it was this thing called reinforcement learning from human feedback. And it's this really interesting mechanism with which we imbue these language models with the ability to be more human. And since then, we've seen an explosion in the sort of chatbots and language models used for these chat purposes, where you can use it for search, you can use it for querying large amounts of data and knowledge, and get it in a very human-compatible, human-friendly format. So let's talk about reinforcement learning from human feedback. I'll give you a very high-level overview of this technology. It's only been recently used since GPT 3.5, which is powering ChatGPT. It's the base version that's free for all of us to use. So let's look at large language models on their own. It's this chaotic mess. It really models the entire internet or any sort of text corpus that it learns on. Sometimes it can give you completely different outputs for the same exact input. And as Qizhe mentioned, it's like a child. You talk to it and it gives you completely random gibberish, but also sometimes it gives you things that make sense. We want to control that behavior, make it more user-friendly. We want to ensure that anyone who talks to these models, anyone who interacts with these models leaves with a friendly experience, leaves with whatever they want to know. So you can think of the landscape of whatever these language models learn as this yellow color blob, and out of that, these red portions are the things that we care about as humans, and we want to exemplify it. We want these properties to be more apparent when we interact with it. So that's when reinforcement learning from human feedback came in as the sort of central pipeline that allowed for this human friendliness. By using this method, we were able to create this sort of interface that shifts away or snips away all the ugly bits of these large language models, this erratic behavior, and gives you something that you think that you're speaking to another human being. So, for example, if you would talk to just GPT on its own, it would say, I am a robot, but then humans don't really say I am, we say I'm. So it's little things like this that make the user interface or the user experience a lot more friendly, and that's what we want to instill into these large language models. So how does reinforcement learning from human feedback take place exactly? We take this large language model, it could be GPT-3, for example, and we train it on, well, the internet itself. And we've been doing this pre-2020, and it's worked out well so far. But we want to exceed those capabilities and make it more human. We wanted to make it sound more human. So then we train this thing called a reward model or a preference model. This is where it's a large-scale exercise involving many people from around the world, a diverse set of people who come in and tell these machines, I want you to output language or output your text in a very specific way. So instead of saying I am something something, maybe kind of tweak it to I'm something something. And by doing that, you make it more human. So what happens is you have a bunch of sample prompts and you pass it into the large language model. This large language model, like GPT-3, for example, spits out a whole bunch of outputs. So humans actually come in and rank those outputs from 1, 2, 3, 4, and this score is converted, or these rankings are converted into this numerical score. So you do this on a very wide scale, and eventually you get enough pairs of these samples and what we call rewards So anything that the language model generates very nicely, we want to assign it a very high reward. And if it generates something that is less ideal, we want to penalize the model and we want to say, hey, don't do that. It's not very human sounding, or it's not very natural. And by doing that, you have this reward model. Finally, a very easy final step is fine-tuning it using this paradigm called reinforcement learning. You can simply think of it as learning by trial and error, where you have a large language model agent that's trying to predict all these words, and every time it's given a sample, it predicts something, it's assigned a score. And as something that's rational, you want to maximize the score that you get. You want to maximize the reward that you get, and that's what the language model does, and it updates itself so that at the end, once you have this fine-tuned model, it's very natural sounding. It's something that you can interact with and leave with a smile on your face. So on the internet, there's this very funny comic that's used to represent these large language models. You can think of large language models on their own, these things that use unsupervised learning, just learning probability distributions on internet text. You can think of it as this ugly mess that's uncontrollable, erratic, something that we don't want to see if we deploy it in real-world applications. Sure, after a bit of extra fine-tuning, you say, okay, let me put a friendly face to it, and you get that pink color thing over there that is less monstrous, but again, still not something that you want in the outside world. Reinforcement learning from human feedback, this new mechanism that we've more or less perfected and still exploring, when we use something like that, it's as if we take a smiley face and put it on that huge mess and say, this final version is something that I want to interact with, and it's user-friendly. At the end of the day, when you want these experiences with large language models to be as fluid as it is with speaking to your friends and family around you, these sort of guardrails need to be there to sieve out the good parts of the language models and to suppress everything that's not so ideal. But this really means that reinforcement learning from human feedback is this large exercise that needs wide-scale adoption. A lot of people need to come in, a diverse range of people need to come in with different backgrounds to really align these models with what humans want to see in these models. So really, it's distilling the essence of what it means to be human, what it means to speak like a human and act like a human. And right now, we're only using it for text, but very soon we might be using it for things like vision and audio. So now that we've given a very good history lesson of these large language models, how they've been fine-tuned and trained, let's talk about it more in the context of its use case. And I'm guessing this audience, a sizable portion of us are students ourselves, and we want to see how we can use tools like ChatGPT to enhance our productivity. So you can treat ChatGPT as you would a friend, someone you can bounce ideas off of, someone you can ask for help from. And all it means is learning how to ask better. You can start interacting with these language models simply by using, natural language. You can literally ask for what you want and refine it along the way. As Prof. HENG mentioned, prompt engineering, as the community calls it. And you can essentially use it as your own personal tutor, on-demand personal tutor. This was something unimaginable a few years ago, but now it's possible. So here are some very brief examples of what students can use ChatGPT-like technologies for. A very immediate example is digestible explanations. Let's say that you're a physics student and you don't really understand the Fermi paradox and you really want to understand it better. You can just ask for an explanation, something that a 10-year-old can understand, and you get something that's really digestible, something that you can take and use for whatever you want to do after that. If you're not satisfied with this, you can continue asking it and probing it further questions and get something that lets you walk out with what you want to know. Let's say I want to take this very long form content, I really don't have time, essay due in 3 days, and I just want to summarize this huge chunk of text and kind of dump that summary into somewhere that I can understand and write my essay with. You can actually copy paste this entire thing, dump it into ChatGPT, this whole blob, and it actually creates a summary for you that you can use downstream. Another one, and I think this is one of the major, the good selling points of ChatGPT. As students, we want continuous peer feedback. We want some peer review for whatever we write before we submit it. So what I did was I gave it the grading criteria that my professors set, and this was my essay that I wrote in year 1. I put in the grading criteria for the excellent grade category, dumped in my own essay, and it actually gives you very nice feedback on how your essay kind of meets the criteria, where it doesn't, the weak points, and places that you can continue working on. And that's something that's phenomenal. I wish I had this in year 1. So my lab, we have a whole bunch of research students, and that means we're constantly churning out research papers. Sometimes you want the message of the science to be communicated in a very beautiful way, in a very understandable way. So what my advisor did was he actually tried putting in these very wackily written excerpts from our papers, and it actually kind of paraphrased it in a very nice looking way. And that already gives you someone to look through your content and help you write it better. And finally, for students, internship hunt. A lot of us have to write a very boring cover letters that we don't have the time to write, but well, we have to. So I asked a friend to give me his resume. I said, hey, ChatGPT, give me a cover letter based on my experience. Dumped in my resume, and out comes this cover letter. Of course, the initial generations are very crude, but with a little bit of working, a little bit of iterative typing, you can really craft something beautiful. So the thing about ChatGPT or any of these AI tools is that from here on out, from 2022 onwards, we're just going to see an exponential explosion in the quality of the generations or the outputs that it gives us, and it's really going to maximize our productivity. But a huge disclaimer that I want to give is that while these tools are out there, students don't need to always go pick them up, but they're encouraged to learn them just so that they can get that extra oomph of productivity. Essentially, if I had to leave you with one message, it would be that AI tools lower the sort of activation energy needed to get started with something. Just last night, I had to write an essay on climate change. I don't know anything about climate change. Just by talking to ChatGPT, probing it like I would a professor in climate change, or I asked ChatGPT to pretend like it's a professor, an expert in climate change, having that very natural conversation, I was able to understand the topic and churn out something that I had to submit. We don't talk about that. But yeah, so while I've given you the very colorful, rosy picture of ChatGPT and AI tools, there are a lot of shortcomings that you might need to be privy about, that you might need to be aware of if you're using it for your own personal use cases or whatever you want to use it for downstream, be it as an educator or as a student. But for that, I'll refer you to the panels. They're very exciting. Please stay on for that. But for now, I'll hand my time to Prof. Jonathan to talk about ChatGPT and the use case for educators and working professionals. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan Sim. I'm a lecturer of philosophy here in NUS. I teach the philosophy of computing and data analysis, as well as Chinese philosophy. Yeah? So two very different things, but all in one. Yeah? Now, today I'm going to talk to you about hands-on applications of ChatGPT, whether you're an educator, researcher, or even just general admin. Yeah? So I'm going to show you what we can do. Now, just a show of hands, how many of you have already started using ChatGPT? Okay, so very good, very good. So, Now, I want to start first with users for educators and researchers. Now, I will tell you a quick summary of my ChatGPT journey. The first time I played with it, I was thinking, hey, this thing isn't very, very good, isn't it? Then I started talking to my students about it, and as Rishabh demonstrated, students have been playing with ChatGPT a lot more than us working professionals. And I learned a lot about how to get it to produce very, very insightful and excellent output. And after that, I've been experimenting. How can I use it as an educator, as a researcher? So today, I'm going to share that with you. Now, the other day, we had a demonstration session with some faculty on how we can use ChatGPT. And there were 3 ladies in the room, right? They played with it, and then suddenly, on the look on their faces, all of them got so upset. And I was like, oh, why are they so upset? Well, it turns out that the three of them spent 3 weeks, okay, researching on how to come up with a grading rubric for a special project. And then they type in the question, the prompt, and ChatGPT gave them something that exactly what they found, if in fact better, within a single minute. Wow, you can imagine how black their faces were that day, right? But the point is this, ChatGPT is wonderful as an idea generator, yeah? Especially as educators and researchers, what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to generate ideas. And we generate a lot of ideas, and sometimes starting from scratch can be very difficult. Oh, new proposal, oh, new curriculum. What do I say? How do I begin? So we can actually use it to generate ideas. We can generate lesson plans. So here's a sample. We can get it to generate like a 12-week intro lesson plan on adolescent psychology for university students. And boom, there we go. Okay. Boom, there we go. Week 1, we will cover this topic. Week 2, we cover this topic. Week 3, we'll cover this topic. Now, here's the thing about ChatGPT, right? The quality of the output is dependent on the quality of your instructions. So if I say, hey, this doesn't quite cover a Singapore context, sure, no problem. Then I can say, okay, make it specific to the context of Singapore. And I can even say, suggest sample assignment questions. And then let's go. Okay. Well, this one even better. It gives you course description at the start. Right? And as you can see, it's starting to already incorporate ideas on how each week's lesson can be linked to a Singaporean context. Now, you can go actually a step further. You can even say, provide the lesson plan outline for lecture 1. Mention what slide number 1, what do you want? Slide number 2, what do you want? It can actually go as far to do that as well. Powerful, isn't it? Yeah. Now, of course, as Rishabh said just now, we can get it to summarize, right? We can also get it to, it's great for researchers. I mean, I've been in a situation recently where I forgot a paper I read 1 year ago. So what do? Again, okay, same article. I can copy, and it can give me a very good executive summary. Now, the one that Rishabh showed you is just a small paragraph, right? But I can actually go one step further and say, is it running? Yeah. I want you to learn this passage and highlight every single point, be as detailed as possible. Now, just now you saw the chat gave a summary, 1 paragraph. Now it gives me way more details. Yeah? So the quality of the prompt is the quality of the output is dependent on the quality of the prompt. Now, as an educator, I can actually go many steps further with this. How? Well, now that I've taught ChatGPT this article, right? I can actually get it to generate MCQ questions. So here's the prompt. I say, based on this, okay, come up with 3 MCQ questions. Okay? Not just come up with 3 MCQ questions, 5 options and indicate which is the answer. And for every incorrect option, explain. Yeah? Because why? In many of the learning management systems, you can also put in the explanation, right? So students can learn why is this option the incorrect option. Yeah? So ChatGPT can write it for you as well. Wow, isn't that great? Now, we can go again another step further. It already learned this article, right? Then what can I do? Generate essay questions. You know, sometimes you just scratch your head. Oh, what can I ask students to write? Okay, then we can get ChatGPT to generate. So same thing, right? Now I can scroll back up, okay, click the edit button, edit this prompt, and say, you know, based on the above reading, come up with 10 possible essay questions. Why 10? Because maybe I don't like the first 5, and then, you know, maybe there's another 2 or 3 that's very, very good. Boom! Now I have essay questions ready. Of course, then I might want to add my own value to the questions. Like I might look at it and say, hey, this isn't quite testing what I want. But at least it gives me the starting base for whatever work that I want to do. Yeah? Now, here's one thing that I experience as an educator. Sometimes we want to teach students by means of negative demonstration. You know, we give them a sample that is problematic, either because the grammar is bad or it's a bad piece of writing, and we want students to learn by identifying the problems, by identifying the mistakes. Now, one of the struggles I face as an educator is that sometimes it can be very difficult to come up with these kinds of examples.
It's easier if you encounter a student's piece with it, right? But it can be a bit sensitive, especially if the student finds out you use his or her work as a demonstration, right? So, okay, no problem, right? What can we do? Here, let me demonstrate. I have an article over here that was written on Channel News Asia. So I can copy this article, and then I can tell ChatGPT, rewrite this in the style of someone who is not a non-native English speaker struggling in English. And then it can write it for me. Now, in the sample I'm going to show you, I specifically said non-native Chinese speaker. Why? Because if you are too vague, what's going to happen? You're going to see an output that is so, the grammatical structure is so weird, the students and you won't be able to relate with it. So we do need to pick some ethnicity, give it very concrete instructions, and then you will do just that. So let's run it. Here's the thing, I'm using ChatGPT 4. 4 is capable of thinking in multiple languages, right? So by asking it to think as a native Chinese speaker, or you can choose any other ethnicity, right? It's thinking in another language, but giving you the output in English. So now I have a piece that's written in not very good grammar, and I can use this as an exercise for students to improve their grammar. Identify what are the problems with it. Wow, powerful, right? Again, so here's a sample, right? So this is the original in decent English, right? As educators, we often ask if our students are ready for the future. But how often do we ask ourselves if we educators are ready for the future? And here's what ChatGPT did to mimic the style of a non-native speaker struggling with English. As teachers, we ask if students ready for future. But we ask ourselves if we teachers ready for future, right? Now we have a sample that we can use as an activity for learning. Now, it doesn't just have to be English, right? We can even get it to come up with bad writing for anything. Bad coding, bad writing, bad whatever. ChatGPT can do that, yeah? Now, we can even go one step further, right? We can give, as educators, we can give very personalized feedback and guidance using ChatGPT. So, let me use this as an example. Again, I'm going to feed this article that was written in the programmer, right? And now I say, come up with elaborate set of guidance with examples to help someone who's not a non-native English speaker understand and identify grammatical errors in what was written. Okay? Let's see. Yeah, it identifies, here are the problems in the above piece of writing. It even identifies the examples from the article with suggestions on how it should be correct. Now, imagine if I can produce this en masse for a lot of students. I can then produce very personalized feedback for every single one of my students to help them to learn and improve. Isn't that amazing, right? Now, of course, what's the next one? Now, of course, we are worried, right? Oh, AI is definitely a disruptor in education. So there are 3 ways that we can respond to AI in education. The first is, can we come up with AI-resistant assessments? Some ideas that I've heard is, let's come up with assessments where half the context is missing from the assignment question. So if they copy and paste it into ChatGPT, the AI is going to say, I don't have enough information to make an answer. Or the answer will be completely off, right? So that is one way. But if you're a very smart student, you start to realize, actually, that's easy, right? All I have to do is then feed it the context that was missing from the assignment, right? And as AI continues to get better and better, I mean, GPT-4's inferential powers are really good, right? So it's becoming a lot harder to implement AI-resistant assessments, okay? So maybe this is going to be very quickly a thing of the past, right? So another way is to consider AI-enhanced assessments. What do we mean by that? As it is, as Rishabh demonstrated just now, some students are already asking ChatGPT, oh, can you please give me feedback on my essay, right? Now, we may say, okay, then wouldn't this then have a kind of inequality, right? Students with access to AI may do better than students with no access to AI. Sure. Then, let's just institutionalize it. Every student should be then consulting AI. So then, they will treat AI as a peer reviewer. So we tell students, okay, before you submit to me, I expect every single one of you submit to ChatGPT ask it for feedback and evaluation. Now, as educators, right, our role is to teach students how to use this rigorously and responsibly. So what can we do? Because students are already doing that to get feedback, right? We want to train them for a higher level. So we can say, using the feedback that the AI gives, I also want you to comment on the feedback, just like academic peer review. Every point of feedback that the AI says, write a response. Do you agree? Do you accept this recommendation, or do you reject this recommendation? Then in this way, the student will start thinking about the feedback. They don't just wholesale accept everything. They start thinking, oh, maybe this is good, maybe this is relevant, maybe this is not useful, right? The last one is AI collaborative assessments, where we treat AI either as a tutor or as a fellow student. Yeah? So how do we do that? Now, I have a poll for you all, which is, please scan this QR code, or if you're already on PoEV, vote. Do you want me to show you AI role-playing as a confused student? How to get students to debate with an AI, or how to conduct Socratic dialogue between AI and a human being? Yeah? So, have you all scanned the QR code? Okay, can we switch to the second PoEV results? Wow, wonderful. Okay, so oh, debating with AI. Oh. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Now, not to worry, all three examples will be in the slides that we're going to release after today's session. Right? So, but I will elaborate on debating with AI. All right. Thank you, everyone. Oh, that was very exciting. Okay, so can we switch back to the slides? Okay, so here is debating with an AI. Now, I developed this with my teaching assistants. It's an activity. You see, the wonderful thing about AI is that we can program it like a computer, right? We can literally program it, but our programming language is now English, the English language, right? Here's the prompt. I want to engage with you in a debate on a controversial issue within the area of topic. You must take a stand on the issue and begin by stating a view from your stance in one sentence. Begin by saying, they say. Thereafter, I will reply you with my own objection, and you will subsequently respond to my objection with your own objection in one sentence. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Then we will continue to have this back and forth conversation with each other until I say stop. Yeah? And the AI will very quiet, listen to this instruction and behave accordingly. So here, what do we have? Yeah? Here's the prompt. I have moral relativism. And then the AI says, okay, they say that blah, blah, blah. And then now, I, as the human, have to respond to it. I say that blah, 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 and then it's going to come out with a response. And then it's a back and forth. Now, we can do this in tutorials, in a face-to-face classroom activity. This can even be a take-home assignment where we get students to engage in this kind of debates and discussion. Now, this is great because we can zoom in on certain soft skills that we don't normally have time to cover in a typical classroom setting. Yeah? So AI allows us to automate this in a way that's personalized for students. Now, okay, just for the people who are interested in the Socratic dialogue, here's the prompt. Basically, it's the same thing. I want to engage with you in a Socratic dialogue. I will be the teacher, you will be the student. Just like that, yeah? And the AI will behave. Of course, occasionally the AI, ChatGPT, can forget one or two things that you say and it will break character. And then you just say, hey, you broke character. They say, oh, sorry, and they will go back into it, all right? Okay, so here's the key to success with teaching and learning with AI. From my own experience as an educator, I found that, I learned all these things in collaboration with students. Why? Because students have, number one, more time than us, but number two, they are sharing a lot of the best practices and uses amongst themselves. And how students use technology can be very different from how we use technology. So if we want to design teaching and learning that's effective, we do need closer collaboration with our students to understand how they use it so that we can then guide them to use it better, responsibly, and more critically. Yeah? Now, I have other things to cover, but in the interest of time, I will now pass the mic on to Karina. Yeah. Thank you.